In this video, we are going to following these documentations to deploy our Strapi app to Heroku. So first, we are going to create an app that using Strapi. So we go to the terminal and we rename this as my CMS. Now we already created a Strapi app, so we can create the admin. So for example, we type ck mobile and then ck mobile at ckmobile.com, and then we type some password. For example, we type test 123 and then we type again test 123, and then we click let's start. And because we just want to focus on deploy to the Heroku, so we do not want to spend so much time on create the collections. So we create a new collections, and then we type a book, and then we continue, and then we click on the test, and we click the title for the book title, and also the author, and then we click finish and click save. And we wait a few seconds, and you will see there is a books collections on the left hand side. And now we can add a new book, but we stop here and continue to the deployment. So the next part is we go to the inside the folders. So we stop the server and then we type cd my CMS, and then we paste the command. So the next part is we open the VS Code. So we type code dot, and if we following this documentation, we have to go to the config and go to the environment and create the folders productions. So we go to the config and create a new folder called env, and then inside the folder we create another folder called production. So env productions, and then we create database.js, and then we copy this code to our project. So we copy this and paste to this file and click save. Now the first thing we want to do is go to Heroku create. So we open the terminal and then we type, or you should go to Heroku login if you haven't logged in yet. But since we already logged in, so we go to Heroku create. Now it already creates a new project called Quiet Self, and then we copy this. We have to initialize a Git, and then we go to add the remote repository, and since we already create one, so we copy this name. This is the Heroku app, so we paste to here, and then what we have to do is to git add and also git commit. So we type git add, and then we type git commit, and then we go down to here. We have to add the add-on, so we copy this one, but the name of the Heroku app, we have to use our own app name. So you have to go to up to here and copy this again and paste to the command. And last, we have to use git push Heroku masters to push to the Heroku. So we paste to here. Now it already successfully deployed to the Heroku, and now we can go to the app by clicking on this link, and we can go to the admin by put a / and type admin, and now it's just like localhost. We have to add a admin account, so we just type a similar thing, and then we type the password and click let's start. And now we go to the books and we try to add a new books and click save and publish. And we can also add one more and also click publish. Now we can go to fetch these books by using this link, and you can see it is forbidden because we haven't set the roles. So we go to the settings, and then we go to the roles and go to the publics, and then we find this. So we can go to take the find and find one, and then click save, and then we go to the books. Now you can see the JSONs. Inside our app, we can fetch this data and list it in a list. So you can see inside the localhost, and also when you compare with the admin page, which is inside the Heroku, there is one difference is we cannot add a collections inside the remote server. You have to add it here. So for example, if you have a new collection called offers, we do not need to add a s here. It will add automatically, and then we just need the name and click finish and click save. And because we haven't start the localhost servers, so we have to back to here and click yarn develop. Now we have to refresh. So we have to add the collections, and we type the offer again, and then we click the name and click finish and click save. Now you have one more collections here. And if you want to update to the remote server, we have to stop the localhost, and then we type git add again, and then git commit. And for example, we type add offers, and then we type git push Heroku master. Now it already said it deployed to the Heroku app. So we can back to the remote servers, and then we try to refresh the page. Now you can see there is a new collection called offers. So this is how to deploy the Strapi to the Heroku. In the previous part, we already learned how to deploy the Strapi to the Heroku. And this part, we are going to create a to-do app to demonstrate how to do the CRUD operation with Strapi. So if you haven't started your local servers, you have to go back to your localhost and then type npm run develop in your Strapi. And then you should open this project. And since we already start the server, so we will not start again. And now we are going to create a new collection called to do, and then it just has a few different labels. One is the title, and then we click another field, and we click which text, and this is the detail, and then we click add another field, and this is the date, and we name it as date, and it also select the type as date, and then we finish and click save. And now we go to the to-dos. For example, we are going to add some to-dos, so we add new to-dos, and then we are going to add doing homework, and then we copy the logarithm text from the generators. So we copy this and paste to here, and then we select a date, and then we click save, and then we click publish, and then we are going to add another to do. For example, we add a new to do, for example, cleaning the bathroom, and then we copy and paste another logarithm text, and then we click another date, and then we click save, and then publish. Now we are going to try to fetch the data, but remember we have to set the public roles, and we go to the public, and remember you have to select all of these actions. So now if you click save, and then if we click localhost the port number 1337 and then to-dos, you can see the to-dos that we just add inside the Strapi. Now we are going to create a new React app. So we are going to use npx First we go to a folder. It's just a random folder that you want to create a project. And now we go to type npx create React app, and then we type Strapi to do. After we create a project, we go to the project by typing cd and then Strapi to do, and then we go to the VS Code by typing code dot. So after we enter the VS Code, we go to delete the unnecessary files such as the app.css, app.test, index.css, logo, this report web vital, and also setup.js. And then we right click and delete. And then we go to the app.js and remove this, and also remove what inside the div. And then we just try to type something and go to the index and also remove this import and remove the index.css and remove the bottom one. And then we go to the terminal and type npm start. And now we can see there is Strapi app displayed inside the website. And now we are going to import the axios because we are going to create a API for fetching the data. So we type npm install axios. And now under the source folder, we create a new folder called API. And then inside the API, we call index.js. And then inside the index.js, we type import axios from axios. And then we type constant URL is equal to the HTTP localhost 1337 and to-dos. And then we create a read to-dos. So we type export constant and then read to-dos equal to axios.get URL. And then we are going to create a create to-do API. So export the constant create to-do equal to new to-do. And then we pass the new to-do to the axios.post and then URL. And then we pass the new to-do. And then we create the update to-do is equal to, we pass the ID and also the update to-do. And then we type axio.put. And then we pass the updated to-do and semicolon. And at last, we are going to add the export constant delete to-do is equal to ID, and then we axios.delete and URL, and then /ID. After we create all these API, we go to the app.js, and on the top we go to import star as API from /API. And now we are going to use the bootstrap, and then we go to the bootstrap and we copy this CSS and go to the public folders and we find the index.html, and then we paste inside the head. Now we go to the bootstrap and we are going to copy the input form. So for example, we select this and then we paste to our app. So we back to the app.js, and then inside this div we replace with this form. And then remember, we have to select all of this, and then we right click and we have to convert to JSX because in React we do not have class, we have class name. So after we already install the axios, we go to change this to containers, and then we go back to our website. You can see it already pastes the form to our website. And now we are going to edit this form. For example, we have to change this to title, and then the type is text, and we do not need the ID, and we also do not need this div, so we can delete this. So now we have just a title, and now we also do not need the HTML for the password because this is not the password, this is for the detail. And again, this is just a text, and we have to remove this class name and ID, and also we do not need this checkbox, so we totally delete this. And also now we have to add one more input box, and instead of the type is text, we are going to change this to date, Now you can see there is a date, but it seems we have to copy this class name equal to form control back to the input field. Now you can see this is much better. In this part, we want to render these to-dos to our app. So now we have to use the use effect and also the use date. So now we are going to use the use date, and then we change this to to-do, and we set this as empty object. And also we have to use the use effect, and we also want to set a to-dos. So we duplicate this and add the as here, and we change this to empty array. And now we are going to use the use effect to fetch the data. So we under here we use effect, and then we delete this and we add a fetch data functions, and then we use the read to-dos API. So constant result is equal to await API dot read to-dos, and then we set to-dos, and we are going to use result.data. And why we use result.data is if we console.log the result, and then we clean up this, and then we execute the fetch data. Now we go to the developer tools, and then we go to the console. You can see there is an object, and the array of to-dos is under the data. So we have to use .data to set the to-dos. So now after we already get the to-dos, we are going to render under the form. So we copy this bootstrap list group, and now if we copy the code from here, now we copy this and then we paste under the form, and then remember we have to change this to JSX. So we convert this to JSX, and then we format the document and save it. Now you can see the React app, and now we also can add the margin top 5 or 4. Now you can see there is a separation between the list and also the form, and we have to delete this active. Now in this part we are going to look through the array. So we already has the to-dos, so now we are going to type to-dos dot map to-do, and then we have to copy this and cut this, and then we paste here, and we have to delete all of this. Now we can save it, and I think there is error. There is nothing to render. It's because we make some mistake. We should not use curly bracket. Instead we should use just a bracket. So we correct this and save it. Now you can see there is 2 objects. This is because we have 2 to-dos. So now we are going to render the title by using to-do.title, and also we can render the date, and which is to-do.date, and we also has the detail. So we use to-do.detail. Now if we back to our web, you can see all the to-dos and also the details and also the date. Now we are going to add the delete buttons. Now we go to search bootstrap delete icon, and we click the trash. Now we copy this HTML, and then we replace this with this SVG. Now if we back to the website, now you can see there is a delete icon on the list. In this part we are going to create the to-dos inside our app. So we already have the use case to set the to-dos, and now we are going to set it inside the input field. Go to these input elements and add on change is equal to E, and then we set to do, and then we spread the to-do, and then we append the title as the event.target.value. Now we copy this and paste to the next input field, and this time we are going to change this to detail, and again we change this to date, and we also have to apply the value is equal to to-do dot title, and we copy this and paste to here and change this to detail, and we paste here and change this to date. Now we go to the top and create a create to do functions, and we set constant create to do is equal to async, and then we use try catch block, and we go to the constant and we get data from the API. So we use await API.create to do, and we pass the to do to the create to do functions. So after that we are going to set to do, so it will append the new to do to the original to do list. Since this API will return the newly created to do status, so we append to the original to do list. So if there is error, we just console.log the error. And now we are going to bind these functions to the submit button. So we go to the button and set on click is equal to create to do, and then we can look at this to do by using display the to do on our website. So we use json.stringify to do, and then use /t. So if we type a new title and new detail, and then we set the date, and then we click submit, now you can see this appends to the list. And if we go to the Strapi, you can see the new to-do that we just create is already inside our database. So this is how to create a to-do inside our React app. In the previous part, we already add the rubbish bin at each of the list items, and now we are going to add this delete function to this rubbish bin so we can delete that specific item. Now we back to our project and we go back to the top, and now we are going to create constant delete to do, and then we use the async function. So we pass the ID because we want to get the ID, and then we can delete the specific item at the Strapi. Now we use the API .delete to do. Of course we need to pass the ID, and then we have the result. After we delete the to do, we want to read the to do again, so we get the latest list of the to dos, and then we set the to dos data. So we go back to, and then we set on click, and then we go to by the delete to do functions. And because we need to pass the ID, so we have to write like this. And now if we go back to here and we try to delete the item that we just create, and we can see there is an error that the server responds with the status of 405 method not allowed. And when we go back to the API folder and we back to the index, we can see we have double // and actually we should only have one // and now we save it. And now if you refresh the page, it said it has to use the unique key at the await. So we have to back to the app.js and inside the map functions, and we have to pass the key and the key is the todo.id, and we save it, and we refresh. And it said it has some format problems, or it should not used inside the React because we do not have the class name. So we have to convert these to JSX. So we right click and convert HTML to JSX. Or we just change this to class name, and we do not have view rule. Now if we refresh the page, the order error has gone, and now we try to delete this again. And now you can see the delete functions work, and you can see the items also deleted. And if you look at this and go back to the to-dos, and you can see it changed from 3 to-dos to 2 to-dos. So it shows the delete functions work successfully. Now we are going to add the shadow to the containers and also the gray color to the background. And first we are going to delete this tag just for debugging. So we back to the app.js and back to the top of the div, and which located here. So we delete this, and then we create app.css under the source folder. So we create new file, and then app.css, and then under the app.css file, we add the element selector, and then we add the background colors to be gray. And then we back to the app.js, and on the top we import the app.css. Now you can see the background color changed to gray, and now we want to make this container to have a nearly white colors. So we go to the class name, and then we add to-do box, and then we under here we type to-do box. And then since we want to add the shadows, and the most convenient way is we go to some box shadow generators, and then we copy this and then paste to here. And we also want to make the background color to be FA, and this is my favorite colors for creating the background of the div. Now you can see it already appeared, and you can see it has shadows, so make it separate from the background. And we do not want to cut it like this way. We want to have some paddings, and we do not want the title so close to the navigation bar. So we go to here and set the margin top, and we paste 10 pixels, and then we also create the paddings of 30 pixels. And now after we save it, we can see there are some paddings, and also the containers is not stick to the browser's edges. In this part, we want to detect whether the user is clicked inside this input area or outside the input area. This is because later we will use this to define whether the user is editing or starting a new one. So for example, if the user click on this item, it will display the title, the detail, and also the date. And if the user click on the other area, it will clear all the things and start a new one. So first we need to define which part is the input area. And in this case, we need to use the use ref from React. So we have to import the use ref, and then at here we create a constant input area ref is equal to use ref, and then at the form we create a ref is equal to input area ref. And now we go to add the use effect to detect the input area is clicked or not clicked. So we use effect, and then we create a function to check if clicked outside is equal to the event, and we are going to check if the input area ref.current.contains e.target, and then we will set this is outside the input area because the input ref do not contain the target element. So else we set this is inside the input. And now we are going to add the event listener. So we set document.add event listener, and we are going to check if mouse down, then it will execute the check if clicked outside. So otherwise we have to clean up the event listener. So we copy this and paste to here, and then we use remove event listener, and then we use mouse down, and then we check if clicked outside and click save. Now we go to the developer console, and then if we click on the input area, you can see there is an error, and this is because we have some typo. We should only have context, not yes, and we add save, and then we click on the area again, and you can see it inside the input area. And if we click on this, it will set this is outside the input area. So this is how to detect the input or outside the input area. In this part, we want the input field will display the selected title, the date, and also the details when the user click on the item. So we need to create a function that can receive the ID titled, details, and also the date. So now we back to our project, and first of all we have to create another state so we can know that this is edit mode or not edit mode. So we use the use state, and by default we set this as false. And now under here we create edit to do, and we just need to pass the ID title detail and also the date, and we need to set to do, and then we set edit to be true, and then we go to the A tag, and then we set on click, and then we pass edit to do, and we pass this ID title detail and the date. And since we cannot just use ID because the ID is not defined here, instead we have the todo.id, todo.title, and todo.details. So we have to add the todo dot in front of each of these values. So now if we go back to the project, if we click on this, you can see the value displayed inside the input field. And now we are going to make some modification on this button. So we want the text will change to update when the user click on the items, and when click outside the input area, it will back to the submit values. So now we back to our button. The button is here, and now we are going to add a curly bracket, and now we are going to check if this is added. Then we should have the edit button. We delete this create to do functions for the edit button, and we change the text to be update, and I think we do not need the submit. Now we just add a empty functions, and then we try to click on the other area. And there is no effect because we forget to set the edit to be false under this use effect. So if we check this is outside the input area, we should set the edit to be false. So if we back to here, we can see if we click on the area outside the input field, it will back to the submit text. And we also want to clear this value. So we are going to set the to-do. Let's see what happens. We are going to set this title to be empty string and detail to be empty string, and also the date to be null. Now if we click outside this area, they said the value cannot be null, so we can try to set this to be the current date. So we set this to empty string and save it. Now you can see the date will return to just the format. So now if we try to do this again, we click on this, it changes to update and the input field has all the values. And if we click outside, it will back to submit buttons, and also all the fields will become empty. After we get all the values from the specified to-dos, and for example, if the user changed this to doing homework 2, and now we want to update the to-do, then we need a update to-do functions. So now we back to our project and go to the top, and we create constant update to-do. And now this time we also need to use the async await. First we want to get the ID from the todo.id, because later we will delete this from the to-do, and then we going to delete the todo.id, because for the update API we do not need the ID property. So the next is we use await API.update to do, and then we pass the ID and also the to do, and then we are going to get the result from the read to do's. So we use await API.read to do's. Now after we already has this array, just like before, we are going to set the to-dos as the latest version. Now we have to update to-do functions, and then we bind these to the buttons. So we back to our update button and we go to here and save it. Now if we try to click update, now you can see it update at instant. So this is how to create the update to-do functions. So if we click on the other area, it will back to the normal and it clear all the fields. And now, for example, if we going to do another things, buying fish, and then we just copy and paste all of this, and then we set the date, and let's see whether it works, and we click submit. Now we go to the developer console, and if we refresh, it has the buying fish. So now we back to see what happens at the create to-dos. So let's see another to-do. And we cannot append the new to-do to our original to-do is because there is a typo here that we should have a S here. If you look at the top, it is set to-dos instead of set to-do. So now if we back to the website, and then you can see now we have just 3 to-do. This time we type new to-do, and then we copy this and paste a few times, and then we add a date and click submit. Now we can see the new to-do already appear here. So now we can click on this and change this to new to-do 2. Now you can see it update, and also we can also delete. So this is how to use the Strapi, and we add to create a to-do